Hello KeenGamers and welcome to another review. This time we have the Red Magic 6S Pro gaming smartphone from Nubia. So let's jump straight in. Red Magic 6S Pro is the latest and greatest smartphone to come out of Nubia. It's a phone that essentially builds upon the excellent foundation of the Red Magic 6 Pro and improves upon it in almost every way. Let's start with the design. The Red Magic 6S Pro brings only a slight cosmetic change when compared to the Red Magic 6 Pro. You still have the undeniable gamer aesthetic on the backplate with the triple camera setup situated at the very center. The left side still features the volume buttons, the fan intake vent and the game space switch, while the right features the power button, the exhaust vent and the triggers used for gaming. Up front you still have the small, non-intrusive bezel to make the phone easier to grip while gaming, along with the front-facing camera and the speaker. At this point I'd also like to commend Nubia for sticking with the 3.5mm headphone jack, which is becoming somewhat of a rare sight these days. Bravo Nubia! Despite the aesthetic being aimed at gamers, this is definitely an eye-catching, beautiful phone that's sure to appeal to nearly everyone. It's big, bold and in your face, but in the best possible way. The phone also feels incredibly sturdy and weighty in hand thanks to its aluminum frame. The back panel here is made out of glass that's a bit of a fingerprint magnet, but hey, at least it makes the phone look absolutely stunning, especially under a bright light. The glass also helps to keep the weight down, as this is already a rock-solid 215-gram phone. Even though the sides of the backplate are curved, its middle is flat, so its resting position is nice and stable. The curvature does make it a bit slippery and less grippy when handled, but luckily in the package Nubia ships a transparent rubber case that completely flattens the curve and makes the phone easier to handle. The case also strategically covers all the sensitive areas while not detracting from the phone's visual design in any way. It's been staring us in the face, but let's give that screen our undivided attention. The Red Magic 6S Pro has a sizable, flat 6.8-inch AMOLED display with FHD Plus resolution and a pixel density of 387 ppi. Now this was already present on the Red Magic 6 Pro and by itself is already enough to make the screen look great. However, there were some improvements in the maximum screen brightness, which was bumped up to 800 nits, making it more visible outdoors and stunningly bright indoors. This, coupled with a rich color profile and great contrast, already makes the screen a joy to look at. But that's not nearly everything that's great about it. Same as the previous Red Magic flagship, the screen here has a 165Hz refresh rate, still making it one of the best and fastest mobile displays on the market. Of course, this can be dialed down to 120, 90 or 60 Hz to conserve the battery, especially since not very many apps and games support that sweet 165 Hz. Still, it pays to have it set to max just for that buttery smooth UI experience that just needs to be seen to be believed. Seriously, jumping from a regular 60Hz phone to 165Hz makes it so difficult to go back, as anything less feels somewhat sluggish and unresponsive. Nubia did improve the touch sampling rate to go all the way to 720Hz, which means that every touch input is registered much quicker than on your average smartphone. The end result is an extreme level of precision and control, which even by itself makes gaming an absolute joy. The 6S Pro is equally beastly under the hood, with a Snapdragon 888 Plus, 12GB of LPDDR5 RAM and a very fast UFS 3.1 type storage. It's an absolute powerhouse that will handle anything you throw at it with ease, and it almost begs to take some of the most graphically intense games for a spin. Benchmarking tools consistently place it near or at the very top in all performance tests alongside other recently released flagship phones. Now, overheating is the #1 reason why I previously couldn't get into mobile gaming, and it's that area where Nubia is miles ahead of the competition. The Red Magic 6S Pro features new phase change materials along with a high-speed centrifugal fan that stores and disperses heat with extreme efficiency. The end result is that the phone never reaches extremely high temperatures to the point you won't be able to hold it, and there are no lag or performance drops even after hours of gameplay. Seriously, I've known to play Call of Duty Mobile or Genshin Impact for 2 to 3 hours in one sitting, and the phone would only get slightly hot in the area around the cameras where most of the relevant hardware is situated. Even if it starts to get a bit hotter than you'd like, you always have the turbo fan option, which will pump out hot air like crazy, keeping the phone cool for the longest of play sessions. One downside of this cooling setup in the exhaust vents is that the phone doesn't have an IP rating, so watch out when you handle it near any bodies of water. Now, another thing that makes gaming so enjoyable on the Red Magic lineup are the shoulder triggers, and the 6S Pro is no exception. Using them for first-person shooters feels the most natural and intuitive, but it can also be used effectively for other types of games, freeing up some screen real estate and making the games easier to control. Pairing the triggers with the games that support over 120Hz refresh rate is a match made in heaven, and it gives you so much control and speed that it essentially feels like cheating in certain games. In truth, it only proves how much of a difference a faster screen and better controls make when it comes to your enjoyment factor, and the 6S Pro knocks it out of the park in that regard. But it doesn't end there, as I also have to mention the speakers, which are right there with the screen in terms of quality. These are in fact some of the best sounding speakers on any smartphone, so I definitely wouldn't be shy of using them instead of headphones whenever I could. It's a dual speaker setup that's excellent for anything from watching some simple YouTube, playing music, and of course for gaming. The cameras remain mostly unchanged when compared to the previous two Red Magic phones. You once again have the 64 megapixel main snapper, 8 megapixel ultra-wide, and the 2 megapixel micro lens. All of them are quite capable of producing great daylight images with lots of detail in a fairly realistic non-saturated color profile. The details definitely get somewhat lost when using the ultra-wide camera, but that tends to be the case for most ultra-wides. Oh, and the ultra-wide is finally accessible right there on the main camera screen and isn't buried in the Pro mode. The main screen also gives the option to go for the 2x or 5x digital zoom. 2x digital zoom is still somewhat usable in some situations, but anything more than that is really gimmicky and won't be usable, at least not if you want good looking images. The macro lens can achieve some great results, but that's only in the absolutely ideal lighting conditions. The portrait mode can look somewhat unconvincing, going a bit overboard on the blur around the head of the subject. The night mode does a great job of brightening up the pictures, but the software sometimes goes overboard on the noise removal, resulting in some images losing detail. The front-facing camera is also serviceable for the casual user. Once again, it takes good images in great lighting conditions, but this quickly degrades as soon as it gets a bit darker. Also, the selfie snapper doesn't have a real portrait mode, so forget about taking some nice Instagram photos with a blurred background if you are by yourself. When it comes to video, the camera supports recording up to 8K at 30 FPS, and while that's great if you have a tripod or want to capture a huge amount of detail, recording at that resolution doesn't support optical image stabilization, so the videos tend to look really shaky. I'd instead recommend opting for 4K at 30 or 60 FPS, as the image stabilization at those resolutions really makes a ton of difference in producing some really good looking videos that are sharp, detailed, and have a wide dynamic range. The camera family menu also makes a comeback, and it once again features some of the more gimmicky features of the camera software. It's been expanded with a couple of additional effects, and sure, you'll find some use in it for the occasional time-lapse or slow-motion video, but the rest really isn't useful in most day-to-day situations, and will perhaps be usable for those of you out there who are a bit more creatively inclined. The fairly sizable 5050 mAh battery on the 6S Pro remains the same as the one on the previous Red Magic flagship, and it's capable of powering through a day and a half of fairly mixed usage. So making calls, playing music, browsing the web and some moderate gaming should easily leave you with around 30% charge at the end of the day. This can vary depending on the brightness level and the screen refresh rate, but it's safe to say you'll get a day of usage even if you bump all of it to the absolute max. For gaming, you can squeeze 5 to 7 hours of pure uninterrupted gameplay, which is on par with something like the Nintendo Switch and is an overall great result. The phone is capable of 66-watt charging, but the box unfortunately includes the standard 30-watt charger that will take the phone from 0 to 100 in around 45 minutes. The software experience for the most part hasn't changed when compared to the Red Magic 6 Pro. 6S is still running Android 11 with Red Magic 4.5 UI on top. Besides the UI feeling very fast and snappy, there's very little unnecessary clutter here and plenty of customization options with wallpapers and always-on display animations that are in line with the entire gaming aesthetic. The Entertainment Toolbox menu once again makes an appearance, and it remains a useful feature for quickly accessing apps or executing particular tasks. Unfortunately, you still can't change its location, meaning it's a bit high to reach when using a single hand. The fingerprint reader remains as fast and as precise as in the Red Magic 6 Pro, as it scans the fingerprint with only a slight tap. The game space received some upgrades and it now looks better than ever. It still acts as your main gaming hub from where you can access all of your games, control any external devices and check your playtime and statistics. Once inside a game, the game space menu turns into a control center that you can use to fine-tune your experience. GPU and CPU performance enhancement options are now immediately available instead of being behind yet another menu, allowing you to quickly change between them according to your needs. You can also easily set the screen refresh rate, send the fan into turbo mode, record your screen, block notifications, and even access some apps in a pop-up window so you don't have to exit the game you're currently playing. Furthermore, the game space allows you to designate the function of each trigger and how sensitive they are, but it also gives you the option to record macros, add an aiming reticule to your screen, change some sound options, and more. All in all, the game space has really matured through its few iterations and is an excellent game control center that's much more than a simple gimmick you'd maybe expect to see out of a gaming phone. Ultimately, while the Red Magic 6S Pro is only an incremental improvement over the previous Red Magic phone, don't let that fool you. This is still one of the best gaming smartphones on the market and one of the best performing and best buy smartphones in general. Now consider the fact that our review unit came with a Snapdragon 888 Plus, 12GB of RAM and 128GB of storage, and that it costs only around $600 when phones with similar specs go for double, and it's clear you have a definite winner. Add to that the amazing features like the cooling and the gaming triggers, and even if you weren't into it previously, this phone will make you love mobile gaming for sure. If you like what you've seen in this video, the product link will be included in the description down below. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe to KeenGamer for more reviews just like this one.